Peace, everyone. Welcome to Beyond Breaking Barriers here. I'm your host, Piper Carter. It is Monday it's a little bit after 8, so I apologize. I'm about 7 minutes late. I had a busy day. Can't you tell? But maybe I'll wait a couple of seconds before people get in here. The show today is going to be a book show where I talk about the book again, Women Rapping Revolution. And it's the story about women in Detroit hip hop. Um, I feel like I want to fix this light a little bit, but I don't know. So I'm gonna put it onto the chat. Probably should put some glasses on so I can see. All right. Peace. Good evening. Yeah, good evening. Good evening. Come on in. Come on in. Come on in. I'm your host, Piper Carter. So every Monday, this show is dedicated to women in hip hop, or we center women in hip hop. Peace, Sugar Booger. Good evening. I think it's Carp Packs. So every Monday we talk about women in hip hop, or we center the conversation on women in hip hop, just so you know where you are and what we're talking about. These shows, we talk about this book, Women Rapping Revolution. If you see a book show, that's what we're talking about. So while people come in here, it has been a very, very powerful and interesting time for us all. We are witnessing oh, we're witnessing so much, unfortunately and fortunately. We're living through it in this moment. Peace, Leah. Yeah, I don't know if y'all have had any um chance to see any of Dr. Ball's shows that center on what's going on in the media narratives, or countering the media narratives of the ways in which the media is portraying what's going on versus like what's actually going on. So I don't know if y'all have had a chance to see Dr. Ball talk about the way the media has been covering what's going on in Palestine in the immediate moment, the ways in which the media has been crafting a narrative. I'm just grateful that we have Black Power media so that other narratives can be lifted, and I'm very excited to see the various forms of solidarity or gatherings of solidarity that are going on globally. Um, and we're also being able to see in real time how more and more people are resisting the narratives that have been portrayed for so long by mainstream media. So um, it's just an exciting time in terms of that, but it's also a very sobering time. And so I'm sending lots of love and solidarity um, to everyone in Palestine and all the Palestinians that are um, not able to be in their homeland in this moment either. Um, man. So, again, if you've been joining us on these shows on Monday, we have been reading this book, Women Rapping Revolution. This work is about what has been, uh, I want to say, part of my life's journey over the past. It's been my life's journey for a minute, but basically, professors Dr. Kelly Hay and Rebecca Ferrugia, who are at Oakland University, studied us, meaning like women in Detroit hip hop. And I know that sounds crazy, but with our permission and guidance, they embedded themselves in our community, supported our community and helped us get our story out and tell our story about Detroit women in hip hop. If you want to hear, the other episodes, I go into detail about that. This is part 3, so I want to dig a little bit more like into the book. So, yeah. And I want to say peace to the chat and peace to everyone listening. So, uh, previous chapters I had read the intro, and I had read like my forward. And so I think I'm trying to think of like, I was trying to think of like where I wanted to like go like from here, because there's so many twists and turns to this story. I so in the book, what another thing I appreciate is that what they've done in telling our story, or the way in which we've told our story, is we've also given some context as to what had been taking place politically in Detroit. I go into a bit more detail in the other episodes about what has been taking place politically at this, through like 2009 up through 2014 is the time period we're talking about. So just to bring everyone up to speed, very briefly, I'll say that during the so-called financial crisis, um, a decision was made federally to do what is called emergency management and create emergency management system, which is technically financial martial law. And so that was done in Detroit and lots of places in Michigan. Like I said, that's how the Flint water crisis was created. But so with that, the emergency manager basically is a bottom liner. So even though the citizens of Detroit voted for their um, so-called elected officials, what happens is when you get an emergency manager, they just put someone in to like bottom line all decisions. So it doesn't matter, like that the people technically had elections and voted so-called for their elected leaders. The people that they voted for were technically sitting in those seats, but they were not um, able to make decisions for people. All the decisions were made by the emergency manager. And so that happened for a period of time of roughly a decade, and it actually helped to disenfranchise people even more. We lost things like, PTA, right? And because they created something called like a parent network. So as opposed to the parents being empowered to fight against the school or to speak up or to stand up or to be the spokespeople, like for their children, they put this organization in the schools, and it was called Parent Network. And it made people feel like there was like a band-aid, because it was like you'll have access to things like, ESL or WIC or, food, uh what is it, GED classes, like able to get your laundry done. So there's a lot of ways, a lot of services that they offer to people. um I shouldn't say but, I'll say and with that, that helps to disempower people, because what it does is even though we need services, so it's not like an either or, right? Like we need a both and. But what it does is, as opposed to people also being able to have access to their power, it kind of just helps them to just have some, not even basic needs, like a little bit below basic needs met. And so it keeps people kind of pacified, so they don't really, have a need or desire to like be invested or involved in a way, because the narrative at that point is like, oh well, we have these things that we've been asking for, which aren't really the things they've been asking for. They're just, anyway, bare minimum. But that's like an example. But imagine that was done. I gave you the example that they did like with the parent network to quiet parent voices, but the same thing happened in other spaces like your city council, wasn't able to make their decisions, right? Like, they're getting bottom line, like all the different levels of government. And so anything that would be addressed by your city government is now bottom line. And so instead of there being like a better decision for people, they're just looking at how to get money. And I explained the right sizing, how they said, well, Detroit wasn't the right size because population shifted. This is their narrative. Population shifted from being like a million people to 750,000. So they decided to make the city the right size. And so they started moving people and they cut off their access to emergency services. They cut off their water. They cut off their street lights. They put them out their homes. They shut down like 250 schools. You'll probably hear me say this stuff over and over because it really had an impact. And so, with that, there was a lot of ways in which war was actually waged against the citizens of Detroit. And so, there were a lot of things that were lost. Hi, James. There were a lot of things that were lost in that whole process. Peace, Marley. So, with that, welcome again. Beyond Breaking Barriers, you're here to have a conversation about women in hip hop. I kind of explained the preface of the book. And so the first uh chapter I read my forward. I think I started with my forward and Mahogany's forward. I'm sorry, the first part one of this series. I read my forward. I also talked about my forward and Mahogany's forward in part two. And then I read a little bit of part of the intro for part two. And I have given y'all kind of a overview, if you will. In the book, I appreciate they do give a lot of great hey, hi David. They give a lot of great context to what was going on in Detroit, because they were experiencing it as we were experiencing it. So they're writing this in real time. So if you get the book, Women Rappin Revolution, and if you go into the description, you'll be able to see where you can purchase the book. They go into a lot more detail. And I'm kind of just giving an overview of the last couple things that I've been going through. Who's that? CB? Oh, peace, CB. So with that, okay, so with that, I'm just kind of glossing through a couple of things here because I do hope y'all get the book to read it. With that, they give some context, some historical context, as well as some high yipper, as well as some context as for like what we were going through, because they were going through it, or they were watching us go through it as we were going through it. So I'm gonna read this. Let me see. I'm thinking which part. Yeah. Okay. I want to read this part as a part of the intro, and then I'll read the formation of the foundation. Hey, peace, everybody. How you doing? Hey. So, why do I never know how to say your name? Is it Ing Onyama? Ing Onyama? I'm not sure. You'll correct me when with the phonetics. Yama. Okay, Yama. All right, so I'm going to start reading. All right, so the foundation constituted a hip hop collective in a hyper local movement working to uplift women in the larger community through sonic, aesthetic, and bodily warfare in spaces across the city. On stages, dance floors, parks, bars, restaurants, galleries, fundraisers, and community centers, its members shaped new forms of awareness, reminded the world that Detroit is still a chocolate city, and all the while made space for women to produce their style of hip hop. Its mission statement reads, this was the mission statement we have at the time, because like I said, the uh we used to be called the Foundation of Women in Hip Hop, and then I changed it to We Found Hip Hop. Um, so this weekly event is a part of a movement that focuses on redefining the vital role of women in hip hop. Our mission is to educate and empower the community through sharing love of the arts, inspiring change and growth, building leadership, and influencing the perceptions and roles of women in hip hop for current and future generations. That was our previous mission statement. We still do that. You know, I had some workshopping because people were like, "Ooh, that's long," but I was like, "That's what we do." Um, and do. So the Great Recession of 2008 was the context in which the foundation emerged. The loss that came from economic collapse was deeply felt among the poorest populations of Detroit. Foreclosures were commonplace and property values plummeted. Emergency financial management was yet to unfold. The city was already selling off its holdings and services. These practices paved the way for entrenchment of neoliberal privatization. This is the context that Piper Carter returned to when she moved back to Detroit from New York City to take care of her mother. Reacquainting herself with Detroit's hip hop scene, Piper asked her friends, "Where are the women?" Men commanded all the elements in the underground. Motivated to change hip hop's motivated to change hip hop's gender dynamics, she sought out MCs who were well known in that community. Piper contacted established MCs Invincible, Ill Weaver, and Ms. Corona. Invincible no longer identifies as she or woman or any gender and is gender non-conforming. I want to say that too. And currently, um, both artists offered to help organize an open mic, an open mic night dedicated to women in hip hop. And Ms. Corona is the rapper that was at the food cart in the movie 8 Mile. So she's an MC, she's a dope MC. But if you ever saw the movie 8 Mile, is her name Vanessa at the food cart in the movie 8 Mile? Yeah, that's Ms. Corona. So yeah, and Ms. Corona agreed to be the first host, and Piper solicited the all-woman band Ying to perform. So that's kind of we actually created the band Ying, Yin. She put Ying, and I'm saying it. No, the band was named Yin. So we actually created this band because there was a band that was called Lola Valley, all-woman band. They were on hiatus. I don't know what they were doing. At the time, my friend, who Aisha Ellis, who I now manage under the Found Hip Hop record label, who is the drummer, she was the drummer for this band. Talked to her. I also met Emily Rogers, who's a bass player, phenomenal bass player in Detroit. Talked to her about how to connect, like with other women musicians, because in my mind, what I wanted to do was create this all woman band that was like the Roots, that would play all of the samples so that when the MCs would come, they would rap over the samples, but the women would be playing, the jazz or whatever samples. And so that was really what Yin was initially. And so that's what they did. They would play the samples like Bob James and all types of, Herbie Hancock, all types of, Weather Report, you name it. And so, peace, is that Jerub? I think that's Jerub in the chat. And so that was the original idea. So that's what they did. That's an expensive idea for an open mic. So our original formation of the event was actually two women DJs, and the DJs would spin back to back. And then for the open, so one would open with like her set, and then the middle part would be the open mic where both of them would take turns spinning, and then the other one would close with her set. right? That was the original format. There's some recordings, and there's some recordings. Let me make sure I know where they are. I'll post them. I'll post some recordings. It's so funny. Um, and then once we started going, and then the night started to become popular, or people really started to really want to come, we would think about, like, how do we make it better, how do we make it more interesting? And I was just like, we got to have live music because it's going to be a different feeling. So um knew one of the musicians, met another one, Emily, I'm telling you about, and then she recruited the other musicians, and so that became Yin became the monthly band. And so they would spend once a month. The reason that we didn't do it every week is because I had to hire a sound person and I had to rent the sound equipment. So that was like $500 to on the low end. That was like $500 to rent the sound equipment and have the sound person run the sound, just before we bought sound equipment. And so but to also have them sit there and run the sound for the band. And then we also had to pay the band, right? So that was another like $500. So we're talking like $1,000 a month for an event where, like, we were charging $5. But if y'all know anything about hip hop, like I know things about hip hop, the majority of those people are artists that's coming to open mic. They're like, I don't have $5 or I have three. Can I pay you later? So there's not that many people that's paying the money. You know what I'm saying? To like come uh to the event. And it's fine because my liberal friends were like, oh, you got to charge $25. And I was just like, it's kind of really an event for the community. So I didn't want, I'm like, you can pay 25. After a while, we developed where you could like pay what you want to pay. So you could give us $100 if that's what you want to do. You could pay what you want. But, we're asking for five at the door. And if you don't have it, you don't have it. So yeah, anyway, that's a little bit you said I'd be the IOU. Right. And so like, it was a really, really fruitful, experience having the band, because that also helped us understand, what that whole thing needs on a production to really run smoothly. And we got a chance to experiment with that like once a month. And then that actually became the format of the way in which we do things now. So so it says after oh, it says over time, a range of performers who practiced all of the elements of hip hop claimed the foundation's stage. While getting women on stage was always the goal, men, youth, and elders all participated regularly at foundation events. We had all elements. So we would have the graph writers, you'd see like them sitting around. We would buy like those black books that writers love to like draw in, and people could like, and we have markers and stuff, and people could tag. And then sometimes they just be there practicing their tags, or if y'all know writers, they just pass each other's books around and write in each other's books, or they might show people how to do stuff. Um, People would bring canvases and just paint if they wanted to on a canvas. The B boys and B girls would be there, like doing their thing, and of course the DJs and the band would play break beats for them, all their break beats that they love, classic stuff, breakbeat remixes of new stuff, like all types of stuff. So imagine is B boys and B girls dancing all over the place, and like they'd have a cipher going. Um, Vocalists would come, poets would come, filmmakers would come, talk, show their films and talk about their films. Authors would come. We'd have book signings and book readings. Um, and honestly, like Sam Greenlee came before, and he's not a woman in hip hop, but you know what I'm saying. We had him talk about, rest in peace. He presented and talked about being an independent filmmaker, and we just learned, you know what I mean, from him as an elder about what that's about. And he talked to us about movement and women, and just gave us some dope game on just like how he gangstered, how they work to like gangster, just telling their stories. We had man, Boss came and rocked our stage before, and that was amazing. I'm still trying to get her on here. She's not doing too well, so sending her a lot of well wishes in this moment and lots of healing. But yeah, Boss came and rocked the stage before. um I know that opportunity got us with Martha Diaz to when she was doing the Nas film, and then um she invited Yo-Yo, and then I was able to have a conversation with Yo-Yo, in Detroit on stage, like about women in hip hop and all of that, and that was super dope. I mean, there were just lots of doors, you know what I'm saying, that it opened for us to have like different experiences with this, all the way from like just, I mean, stuff that is just like wow. Uh so it says, after 1 year of weekly open mic nights, Piper expanded the vision of the collective. She recruited a multi generational pool of women involved in local activism in her efforts to cultivate relationships with other like minded community members. Most foundation members were African American, though some Latina, white, Asian American women were also members of the group. Most were MCs, though some were DJs, visual artists, and B girls. While the ages of members ranged from early 20s to mid 50s, the collective devoted special attention to youth activism. The foundation was culturally relevant, political and social resource was a culturally relevant political and social resource center for youth and adults who love and live hip hop culture. Each artist that we have come to know has a fierce bond with the city. They have deeply personal and collective identifications with Detroit and its history. So basically, she says that the chapters that follow illustrate the intricate role that Detroit plays in foundation artists' work. So Detroit's well-being is a community effort, and foundation artists are vocal about their visions and those of Black Detroiters who have weathered its storms. Removing Detroit from the work of foundation artists is akin to making hip hop without a bass line or a 16 bar verse. It is inconceivable. So, um, the I was telling you all that we had the space, and so the space was a space for us to do like so many things. And again, she's talking about it as a community center. Like I said, we had baby showers there, we had janazas, and not funerals, but memorials there. People even had their weddings there, their receptions. We had all types of dance parties for all genres of music. But one of the biggest things that we had was what I noticed. I think I told y'all a story before about how when I first got the building, saw these young people. It was like the afternoon. Heard some noise in the alley. Went outside in the alley, and then saw that it was these two kids. Let's say like age maybe 11, 11, 12, like sixth grade-ish, outside. They was spray painting on the wall, right? So it's like noon in the middle of the day, like during the week, like during the school day. So I'm like, hey, like what are y'all what are y'all doing? And of course they got scared and they started running. Then I like stopped them and everything. Then they came back, and I was like, y'all okay? Like y'all supposed to be in school. Like why you not in school? And that's when they explained, like that they had gotten kicked out of school for spray painting on the wall. And this is before I got into like doing youth program. This is me, like the artist me. And I was just like, what? Who kicks people out of school for painting? And who thinks that it's a good idea for children to like not be in school? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like at 12 o'clock at noon. Why do you think that is better for them to be put out? So I was like, well, I said, well, how long are y'all, out of school for? They're like, I don't know, till they let us come back. So I'm like, well, how long is that? They're like, well, we don't know. So I'm like, wow. So long story short, I let them come in. And then after a while, I let them just keep coming because they had been in this program where they're supposed to like um, be in school on the internet. Now you have to understand this is 2009, so kids aren't really on the internet. I mean, like not like that. You know what I'm saying? And also, too, these kids in particular, they didn't even have internet, and so um, they were literally just like running in the street because they didn't have supervision because their moms were working, so there was nowhere for them to go, so they were just hanging out. So I started letting them come, and I was like, well, y'all could come, but you gotta do your schoolwork. They was like, okay. So during the day I would do like other things around there, and they would do their work, and then I would, check in on them that they were getting their work done, or if they needed help or whatever. I met their mothers and everything, and realized a lot of other challenges that were going on, and was like, man, like, so I guess in today's terms, they would say we help provide wraparound services. I guess that's the proper term in a nonprofit language. But, in our language, it was like they needed help to survive. So we just helped them, you know what I mean, be able to get what they needed. And part of that was like a safe place to do their homework, a safe place for them to, be somewhere, go every day. So start talking to them more about what they want to do and their hopes and dreams and all this kind of thing. And then, just start to learn more, I would say, from them. And that was the evolution of uh, our youth program. And then from there, a lot of the young people that were, coming to us were from the neighborhood. And they would come because they love the hip hop, they love the environment, but we also, would talk about social issues and listen to them and help them. And then, go help them learn how to go to school and advocate for themselves. And, we had them watching certain videos and, asking different questions. And then as we started learning more and going to trainings, we would invite them to come to trainings, and then they would recruit people. And then next thing you know, more kids and more kids. And it was funny because a lot of the parents were a lot of adults, right, were coming because they like the open mics and the events and stuff like that. But then when they saw what we were doing with the kids, they'd be like, oh, can I bring my kids? And we'd be like, yeah. And then next thing you know, like half of Detroit hip hop's kids were in my youth program, which was pretty dope because now I know like a lot of these kids whose parents are like, hip hop artists or whatever. And now those kids are, grown, and they grew up like with our values and things like that. So that's pretty cool. And I'm still doing like youth work, to this moment. Um, I'm gonna skip through because I've talked about a lot of this stuff that's going on. And then let me see what she says about Detroit hip hop and the rise of the foundation. So that's actually, yeah, okay. It's on page 21. Detroit's musical history is rich, and hip hop figures prominently in its evolution. So, this chapter situates the foundation in the context of the local hip hop underground, and in particular, the development of inclusive spaces like 5E Gallery that privileged hip hop's knowledge element. So, 5E Gallery was the name of our space for the five elements of hip hop. We said that we were the knowledge element. We're all the elements, but we are really the knowledge element. It's a whole thing. Uh, we illustrate how these changes in the late 2000s were in contrast to the hard, raw, and male centered battle rap culture that dominated in the 1990s and made it difficult for Black women like Ms. Corona and Redbone, as well as white male artists like Eminem, to be accepted at the venues like the influential Hip Hop Shop. If y'all don't know about the Hip Hop Shop, Maurice Malone, um, back in I think 92 around thereabouts on 7 Mile, he created something called the Hip Hop Shop, sold clothes and all of that, but also on Saturdays in the afternoon had an open mic. If you see the movie 8 Mile, then the Hip Hop Shop is where they did that open mic, and that was where Proof was rest in peace, was their um, host, and he would recruit different people. It was where Eminem, got his start, which is why they created that movie 8 Mile, and a lot of other artists. Pretty much all your prominent Detroit rappers and artists and DJs and stuff came out of hip hop shop. If you know about DJ Head, y'all know that album called there's this album, y'all may have heard of it. It's called The Chronic 2 by Dr. Dre. DJ Head is a producer on there. You probably won't see a producer credit because y'all know how Dre does things. But DJ Head is a major producer on The Chronic 2. He um was the DJ, one of the DJs, one of the central DJs at the hip hop shop. Also, too, um, you might know DJ Los. DJ Los, um, father, Butch Small, is a percussionist. He played on all of the Parliament Funkadelic, like all this, like all that type of stuff, but all the percussion, like all the percussion you hear on Parliament Funkadelic, all your favorite songs, that's Butch Small. He is Carlos's father. Carlos is DJ Los that does all the scratching on mostly all the Detroit rappers that you hear. If you hear scratching, it's probably DJ Los. Um, and DJ Los, me and him are the same age. He had a record out when we were kids, like in the 80s. It was a big, 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 big deal. His father, Butch, also played for the Dramatics. So if you ever saw the percussionist in the Dramatics, that's Butch. And so Butch was in Cali touring and all that stuff with Dramatics. And y'all know how much Snoop loves Dramatics. So he got a chance to be with all these types, and that's how those a lot of those connections got made in that kind of way, DJ Quick and all that kind of thing, right? And so that connection went from like parents to like young people, you know what I'm saying? There's a person named Hassan Mausi, rest in peace, who was also partnered with Maurice Malone, who helped create the hip hop shop. And I always want to mention Hassan. He was a dancer. He danced in the circles and all that. That he helped create the hip hop shop. So I'm mentioning all this because the hip hop shop was very instrumental in the I'll say the creation of Detroit hip hop culture. And there's like a kind of a lineage, if you will. And so it's like hip hop shop is, let's call it like the beginning. There was oh my god, there's a it's not it there's two other, I wasn't here at the time, so I was in New York at this time. There's two other, the Cafe Mahogany is one of them, and there's one before Cafe Mahogany because it's not called Legends. I'll get it for you for the next time, but so it goes like hip hop shop, then the next one, then Cafe Mahogany. And so what had been happening is these had been spaces that had been taken over by hip hop artists to like do a night, right? And but the hip hop shop was different because that was actually created, that whole space was created for hip hop. But the other spaces were more like restaurants or places where people took over and then they would produce these events, right? So I think we also would get compared, 5E Gallery got compared to the hip hop shop because we were actually like on the space as well. And so it was hip hop everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. Um, just kind of giving y'all a, so you know. So do, 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 do. So from here, we move on to the foundation's efforts to create more inclusive spaces for women and the dynamics of its weekly open mic, which the collective hosted for 5 years from 2009 to 2014. We conclude with discussion of the objections, struggles, and successes of the foundation during their years of operation between 2009 and 2016. In the 80s and 90s, the city garnered an international music reputation for its innovative electro and techno sounds. Detroit is the birth of techno. And if y'all don't know, techno is black. Um, if you look up Submerge Records and Underground Resistance, um, which is my office is inside of Underground Resistance. Um, and that's the birthplace of techno music. That's related because what's interesting about Detroit's um, hip hop history, if y'all know about Jay Dilla, rest in peace. Jay Dilla came out of hip hop shop. There were the hip hop shop created Jay Dilla. Okay. So if y'all know anything about yes, techno. If y'all know anything about Detroit's music culture, yes, originally we had blues and jazz and obviously Motown, but we also created techno. And so with that, um being a part of the culture, then you'll notice in Detroit, you might notice it with some Dilla music, you might notice it with some other music. um Techno is like uh they have ghetto tech or like this electro funk type of thing. In the 80s, this electro funk, was really a prominent sound in Detroit hip hop. um there's obvious records, and on the West Coast, the dance culture came, was more influenced and created out of that electro funk. In Detroit, we really got heavily into electro funk as well, you know, and those records were played along with the hip hop records. And so, because we're in Detroit, you know, Detroit is technically on the East Coast, but very heavily influenced by the West and more recently by the South, but originally very like EB, EBM. You mean EDM? EDM is white folks' music. Um, Techno it came from black people. Techno actually. I don't know if y'all know. Like, there's a song called "Clear." Uh, that is one of the first techno songs. Um, and it was very heavily influenced by, you know, um, this sort of funky sound where they were trying to experiment with, electronic instruments. I know, we remember like when Stevie Wonder changed his sound, but his was a bit more like groovy. You know what I mean? Some of the younger artists that were really getting more into, this sort of like technology, those records were the records that when people were doing like pop locking, and you know what I'm saying. And then we have a dance in Detroit called the Jit, and it's a cultural dance that's important. There's a film about jitting. Computer Love is a slower tempo. Like Ohio Funk is a different because Zap and all that stuff is a little different. I mean, it's from the same era. It is in the same family. Well, yeah, those are in the same family. What I would say is a little different was that these other songs I'm talking about are more like what you would dance to. You know what I'm saying? They were more danceable. And by that I mean, like I said, people were doing a pop lock in and all the funk dances that we used to do, and all of the like the jit. And in Detroit, those dances were done along with breakdancing. You know what I'm saying? So if you see Detroiters that were mixing all, mix a lot of that stuff. In the so It took some time for hip hop to gain momentum in this musical milieu, but over time, hip hop music and culture began to permeate the city and its people. Local MCs and producers drew on influences from East and West Coast rap, as well as legendary radio sets of local DJs, the Electrifying Mojo and Jeff the Wizard Mills. So if y'all know, jitting is to Detroit as footwork is to Chicago. What I'm told from Chicago people is it's called juke, but they might be older. Cause like some of the younger people when I'm going to Chicago are like, I don't know what you're talking about, juke. Um, yeah, so not sure. I'm not from Chicago. That would be a Chicago question. We need no name to answer that question. um but just like in New York, they had like Mr. Magic and Red Alert, Chuck Chill Out and all this kind of thing. Which was also I had because I lived in New York at that time. That was my intermediate school days. But my high school days I spent in Detroit. And so we listened to there was this DJ still here, but he's not really on the radio. He's got a YouTube channel, it's amazing. Electrifying Mojo. His voice was incredible, and he would just play like all types of incredible music, craft work, and just every genre of music, right? Like Depeche Mode, um you name it. He would play like literally any kind of music. And we also had this television show called The Scene. So if y'all know anything about Detroit, WGPR was the first Black television and radio station in the country, and it was here in Detroit. And we had a show that was called The Scene. It was a dance show that was pretty much like Soul Train, except way more culture. Like way more culture. I put it to you this way. Prince made an appearance on The Scene. I think it was in like maybe 82 or 81. It was a long time ago. There's like you could probably see it on YouTube somewhere, but I totally remember him being on there, and he was introduced as like this new kid, like an obscure like new kid, Prince. And I remember this. And Detroit is one of the places that actually like broke Prince. That's a terrible term, broke. But I hope y'all know what I mean when I say like break an artist, like where they become big. Not break. Hope don't break people. But so Mojo would like do these long speeches where he would talk over the music, and he would bring the music in, and he would play like space sounds, and he would talk about like traveling through the cosmos and astral travel and take your mind to a new place. You know how radio DJs will put on that like radio DJ voice, and they will let you move through the cosmos as you astral travel into the next dimension. Travel with me as I take you on a journey to the land of funk. And then put on like, One Nation Under a Roof or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, and they would just like, it's interesting. Like again, there's a whole YouTube channel of the Electrifying Mojo, and he would talk about Black Power stuff. He would talk about current news events, but it would be in that amazing voice. And then he would always be so intergalactic with it. And then it would always be like some interesting music. And then he would play like if a song was 15 minutes, he's gonna let that song play he's gonna let the album version, the 15-minute album version or the 15-minute 12-inch version play, because DJs play those 12 if they play vinyl, they're going to play a 12-inch version because that's just going to be a better quality sound. But he would let that play, and you would listen to like the whole thing. This is the 80s when you would listen to radio, and it will be commercial free. It will be commercial free. uh so Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Maybe we talk about that later. We talk about that later, Leah. Um, Extended cuts, exactly. And so, that would be your like Friday night, right? Or your was it Friday? Feels like it was Friday. Anyway, this is the 80s I'm talking about. So forgive me if I don't remember what day of the week, but I think it was a Friday. So, but famous DJ, that revolutionized, and this was who set the stage, the soundscape for so many people in Detroit culturally, teenagers, young people, but just people in general. There was another DJ the wizard, who's Jeff Mills. Jeff Mills is um is the wizard. So Jeff Mills is doing some really interesting stuff on the internet now. I think he was in like Kathmandu or something, like in the desert, and they were like playing these interesting instruments, and they have all this interesting like costuming. But this guy has been paid by Elon Musk. I don't know, X amount of millions of dollars. You know, all those crazy rich people who gave Elon Musk like millions to buy a ticket to go to Mars. Yeah, because y'all know Elon Musk got that rocket to go to Mars, right? So for that trip, for whoever bought the tickets, Jeff Mills is the DJ that he hired for when they go to Mars. So I don't know how many of y'all bought a ticket. I didn't. I didn't want to spend my money on that. But but anyway, that's a real thing. You know what I'm saying? Ironically, but that's Jeff Mills. He was our original DJ. He's on some other stuff now. But yeah. So in a time before mass media and conglomeration and conformity, Mojo and Mills sets featured everything from new wave and soul to classic rock. Their eclecticism, along with Detroit's rich musical history, inspired its hip hop trajectory. During this period, Detroit artists received some national attention and radio play, but chart topping hits from the region were sparse. As the 90s wore on, the hip hop acts who garnered the most accolades were white and included the likes of Kid Rock, Insane Clown Posse, and Eminem. I'm gonna tell y'all a rumor. This is a rumor, a rumor, a rumor. Um, so a rumor is that the reason that no hip hop has come out of Detroit, or had come out of Detroit, was because um, Eminem's uh, what attorney and manager Paul Rosenberg had put a halt on it so that no other rappers or anything could come out, so that Eminem could be the like the only rapper out of Detroit. That's a rumor. I heard that rumor in the industry before I moved back to Detroit. Is it true? Is it not true? I think I've done my due diligence and said it was a rumor. It was a rumor. I don't know. Any hootie, Rudy, Tootie. Uh, so the standardization of radio programming and the collapse of national rap tours were two conditions that led to the cultivation of hip hop scenes outside of LA and New York. Um, so uh y'all know about Kathy Hughes bought up like a whole bunch of radio stations, right? I mean, I think, did Jared do a show? I feel like Jared did a show on this, but my mom, rest in peace, used to work for Kathy Hughes. This was when my mom was doing PR and radio and stuff like that. If y'all know anything, my mom, um, rest in peace, worked for Motown in the 60s. She's from Black Bottom. And if you go to the Motown Museum, there's one time card there, and it's my mother's. And if my mom was here, she's got plenty of tea. But so um, some of the things that I know maybe because of that, but some of the other things are rumors. Who knows? But um, you know, Motown had done something that was unprecedented, right? Um, they had broken through what you would call like this iron curtain of power that was controlling the distribution of black music and the black sound. There's other critiques of Motown, Berry Gordy making, all the decisions he made around Puff Daddy style decisions. You know what I'm saying? There's decisions that inspired Puff Daddy around like people and their money, you know what I'm saying? And the way he did the artists and all that type of stuff. The way that the way he dogged artists out, like, you know what I'm saying? Use them up, you know what I'm saying? Respectfully, because he is an icon, but the way what does it say? Do you know Piper know Pretty Dope Dia by any chance? Cause they both D girls. You talking about Dr. Dia? Dr. Dia? Not sure. But could be. But you know, the business practices of Motown that, you know, were not in the best interest of artists, but were in the best interest of the label. The ways in which the artists, so I know a lot of times what he would do is artists would get into financial trouble. This is stuff my mom told me. They would get into financial trouble. And so he would hire them, right? So they would be like drivers or some other thing so that they could like earn money because they had owed all this money. You know what I'm saying? Whether, I mean, he would control his artists, and if they didn't do the things that he wanted in the way that he wanted, like he would control their image and all of that. And then if, things weren't going that way, then they might not be being promoted. You know what I'm saying? Or he would find the next new thing and be on to the next thing and then forget about these other people that he had over there. This is documented in books, but my mom has lots or had, lots of stories that she shared with me about stuff like that. I'm saying that to say that even with all of that Motown stuff, what they had done was right. Allegedly, that very allegedly. Did I say it 3 times? That Berry Gordy was a pimp. Um, that's what they say. But I put allegedly on there. There are a lot of books that document it, and there's people in the street, as you say, who can confirm, but we're saying, allegedly. But yeah. So with that, um, even with all that, what Berry Gordy was able to do, or what Motown was able to do, was circumvent like the Matrix. You know what I'm saying? And they got looked at like, how are y'all doing that? And basically got reeled back in, right? And so there were a lot of things that went on at that time, but I'll say this to say that in Detroit, things had never like been the same, right? Since then, whether it's like, if you go on any record, listen to any album for the last, I don't know, 70 years or so, there's probably somebody from Detroit. As a matter of fact, I know there's somebody from Detroit on all the records, right? Whether they're a producer or a musician or a writer. Detroit has been very, 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 very heavy in the music industry. Now, again, during that Motown period, the artists were also on the front, right? And including the writers, right? The Holland Dozier Hollands and all that, right? But um the 80s, right? So when Motown moved to LA, and from there, like the 80s moving forward, um it was pretty much a wrap. So a lot of what this book is kind of talking about is history that we talked about, where it's a combination of all that, right? So also too, what happened in like the late 90s going to early 2000s, when they're talking about the consolidation of these radio stations. So again, my mom worked also in radio promotions and PR during the 80s, and for one of the biggest radio stations here, WJLB. And that's like our 90 FM 98, right? And so when the consolidation happened, I'll always remember my mom. I'm trying to think of the year, and I'm feeling like it had to be in the 90s. I'm like, was it the early 2000s? I feel like it was like late 90s or something. But I do just distinctly remember, because I was living in New York City, and I called my mom and she was pissed off. And she wouldn't mind me telling y'all this story because she thought it was funny. And she was so pissed off. And I'm like, what is wrong, mommy? Because I called and she was just angry. And she was like, she told me she had quit her job. Now, my mom had a great, cushy job. Like, if you know anything about the 90s and marketing money, radio money, that was like good money. And it was a good job. She was doing PR and promotions for one of the biggest DJs here. At that particular time, morning show DJ. And if y'all know anything about morning shows, it's a really important part of radio is your morning show. That's where your like stars come from, is your morning show, right? And my mom comes, she's like, that fucking bitch. And I'm like, who? She's like, Kathy Hughes. I'm like, what happened? She's like, she's gonna fuck up radio. I'm like, and I was like, wow. And but it was because of that, it's interesting, I just remember that period where my mom was one of the only voices that was resisting that, idea. But I think it was obviously it was out of her hands. And I think she was like, I'm not gonna be a part of this. And she quit. She quit her like decent job that she had worked really hard because she just didn't believe in it. And she was like, this is not good for the people. It's not good for media. It's not good for radio. I don't want to be a part of it. And what's interesting, I think I saw a show that Jared did about where he was talking about Kathy Hughes. And I was like, this is all the stuff my mom was talking about, like way back then. She saw it coming. She was like, you're going to ruin it. And that was like at the beginning of those conglomerate, things. And then even I experienced, like I think I told y'all when, some of my experiences, in media. But I'm just saying that to say that in Detroit, so if you're in the coast, like if you're in Los Angeles or you're in New York, you're going to have access and opportunities, right? Because the radio stations are there, the TV stations are there, the film companies are there. This if you want to be a mainstream. Obviously, in 2023, you can do whatever you want to do and be wherever you want to be, right? It don't matter. But we're talking, right, like 90s and early 2000s where things like radio and these big media companies like actually still meant something. And in Detroit, we had what were like, I want to say like satellite stations. So basically it would be like Atlantic Records is here, but I really don't even know what they do. Like they have an office, but nobody does anything here. It's not like they do listening part. Like they don't have nothing that they do. Maybe it might be distribution center. I don't know. But we do have like, the different labels here, but it doesn't exist in the same way as labels do other places. And so here we have a lot of independent labels. And they might get like a distribution deal with Universal or, whoever, get a situation as they call it. You know what I'm saying, with whoever. But that's always been Detroit. So even how Motown created their own thing and their own situation, their own distribution, and they did their own tours and all that stuff. That's always been the way they do in Detroit. So even when in techno, own labels, own distribution, own thing, whole own industry. it hasn't really ever been duplicated in hip hop in Detroit. I'll say that. Said think in it might have been 2000. Heard about it right after I moved west. Love for me having geek out on Mason in the morning 107 in 98. Yeah, Mason. You know Mason. Yeah, that's what my mom used to do the PR for the Mason show. So, talking about the standardization. So, boop, 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 boop. So anyway, she talks about the different spaces that existed, this whole kind of history, right? And we talked about like the hip hop shop. There was also the St. Andrews Hall and the Rhythm Kitchen, which was the predecessor to the hip hop shop. There was who else? Also, Jerome was a part of Hip Hop Shop. Jerome Mongo was a part of Hip Hop Shop. Um, oh, right now I'm on page 22. I was like, I deviated from reading to kind of explain, but I was just on page 22, where I was just it's still on the explanation of the explanation. And then she also talked about uh some of the record stores. Oh, you got a copy? Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'm on 22. Um, and some of this stuff I explained already, but I was just kind of looking at it to see some notes. Also, too, there was I'm gonna bring Kalima on here. The original Nikki D is from Detroit, and she came out in the 80s. Um, and she was the first woman to come out on wax, and well, in Detroit. So I want to bring her on here and talk to her because she's got some great stories from the 80s. I'm going to also bring Ms. Corona here and talk to her. She can talk about some stuff. But there was also World One Records. Man, there's just like so much to talk about. Boop, 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 boop. I talked about all these connections between Los's father, right? Uh, and just some of these, connections from like the music industry connections that that existed. Uh, do. What else? I was thinking I didn't want to go like too far off. Um, Trying to think of where to go next. She talks about the name, why we called it the foundation. But I think I told y'all that one of the main reasons, she has like a whole little section about that. But one of the main reasons we called it like the foundation is because we wanted to do what we were like, oh, real hip hop, so we're like the foundation, but also because we're like women are the foundation of the universe. Duh. No, but that's why. But we also wanted to give it a name that didn't sound cute because there was this whole okay, I gotta deviate a little bit. So when I first was creating the name, uh I went to people and I was asking them like what did they think because I wanted to get input. And um one of the DJs was like, this is a woman DJ, was like, you should call it bitches ain't shit. And I was like, wow, that does not sound like a good idea. Like that's totally the opposite of the night. And her vision, because at the time, um, a lot, like I was saying, a lot of places I was going to, either if you saw women, they were not playing hip hop, or if they were playing hip hop, you didn't see women. And I was like, I can't be here. It was too much testosterone for me. No offense. Ooh, lots of aggression, lots of like, you know how it gets. Like, and I was just like, man, I just wanted to go where I could like listen to music and you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, didn't want anybody touch my butt grab me, yo, ma. You know, I don't. I just want to listen to the music and hang out and have fun. But so with that, I was meeting the different uh people in the community, and when I would go out, I'd be like, if I went to a hip hop spot and would see a woman, I'd be like, oh, she, you know, like, hey, you like hip hop too? Okay, where do we go? And they were like, mm-hmm. And after when I first started the night, and I was, you know, getting the idea, and I'm trying to meet women because I'm like, oh, I want to get all the DJs and the MCs and the this and that. So when I'm going out, I'm like, oh, uh, the women would be like, oh, you know, I'd be like, well, what are you doing here? They'd be like, well, I like the music. I like, okay, yeah, you like this song, next song. So once I'm getting to know them, I'm like, oh wow, she knows this music like really well. I'm like, well, what do you do? And they will always say like, oh, I don't do anything. Like I'm his girlfriend. And I will always be thinking to myself, like, that can't be true. There's no way that like you're here just for your boyfriend, because I don't know, maybe that's an assumption, but to me, a hip hop spot is a spot that you go to because you really love hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Like you really love hip hop because you're gonna be there for like hours at a time, listening to this music super loud, and like I don't know, like I that's not a place I would go and just for a guy. I don't know, but any hootie really tootie. Um, I was like, nah, you like this music. I know you like this music. So eventually, I would learn that maybe she might have a talent, and I'd be like, oh, okay, so you're a DJ, and then she'd always be like, and I'm saying she because it was different people, but it was like they all had this sort of same response. And she would say, nah, I'm not really a DJ. You know, they would tell me that they had turntables. They would tell me that they was practicing. They would know all this stuff about music. And I'd be like, why are you not a DJ? Like, why are you saying you're not a DJ? And it was always because some dude that they were dating or dudes in the community would tell them that they weren't good enough. So I was like, well, I'm about to start this night. And oh yeah, okay, wait. So I think Dr. Ball left and came back, but just want to let folks know that on the November the 9th at noon, that Jared Ball, Dr. Ball, is going to interview me about this book, so we'll have a discussion. So if y'all are able, set your clock, set your timer, and put you a calendar invite, and then when you know, finish watching this, or maybe while you're doing this, remind yourself, Black Power Media, November the 9th at noon, you got to watch that because that's going to be great. That's going to be amazing. So I would ask the young ladies, like, you know, well, why don't you come and just DJ? You know what I'm saying? And then we'll see. And they would come. And to be honest, when we first started, people weren't really coming to to check us. You know, it's a new event. Nobody knows who we are. And you know, I'm picking up people, and people like don't really know them, don't really know me. So it's not really gonna be that many people there. But we start the night, and it ended up being pretty cool. And the people that came had a good time. So we start saying, like, okay, we're gonna do it every week. So we start doing it every week. And then some people start to come. They're like, this is kind of cool. So this one particular day, um, this young person that was a DJ, she came, and she was crying, right? And she's like, because there was this event, it was called Open Decks. And basically, if you're a DJ, you could take your it was open decks. It's like open mic, but it was called open decks, and it was for DJs. It wasn't my event; it was some other dude's event, and anybody could go, anybody could DJ. Now, y'all know as well as I know, when you go to open mic, it's an open mic. Like, it might be some terrible people there, might be some great people there. It's an open mic. The mic's open, so Hopefully it's a great open mic, you know what I'm saying? But it's an open mic. So it's open decks. So she's going, and she had gone 1 week and they didn't let her on the turntables. She had gone another week, and I think it happened like another couple times. So I'm at the gallery. She comes through. I'm like, "What's the problem?" She's like crying, like, "They won't let me on the decks." I'm like, "What are you talking about? It's open decks." Well, they said I'm not good enough, this and that. And I'm like, "You don't have to be good enough. It's open. You can suck. Like, who cares?" And it was a whole thing. I said, "You know what? You ain't gotta beg nobody to get on no open decks. If you wanna suck, you can come here and suck. Practice." You know what I'm saying? I know eventually you're gonna get better if you into it. So we would just do stuff like that. You see what I'm saying? So she started coming. She didn't suck actually. She was actually really good. So she started coming. She started developing a fan base. I mean, it was a whole thing, right? Next thing you know, I don't know, call it like maybe a year later, like 2 years later, all these dudes start coming to me talking about, "Oh, you got this night," because now the night done built up. Now it's hot. You know what I'm saying? Everybody coming, it's hot. So everybody's coming. All the dudes coming to me like, "That's not fair. Like, y'all that got a night for women. Why y'all ain't got no night for men?" I'm like, every night's a night for men. There's a one night that is not only for men. We center women. Everybody can get up there and rock. You just can't do misogyny. And if there's women that come, they're gonna get prioritized to get put on the mic or get put up there. But it was dudes that was DJing, it was dudes that was rapping, it was dudes that was dancing. It wasn't like no men, it wasn't what they had a little rascals, the he man woman haters. It wasn't the she woman man haters. It was just like, yo, this is our space to like us try and like, you know what I'm saying, figure out what we're gonna do for ourselves. And that's what it was. It was experimental. You know what I'm saying? We was figuring stuff out and just try this, try that, which is what everybody's freaking open mic events are. Hello. But anyway, a lot of the women would just come, and then after a while it just became a safer space because we just figured out how to like slay those demons. But like I said, initially all the names, like, one of the DJs wanted to call it bitches ain't shit. Another person, another, oh my god, this idea came from one of the dudes, no offense, but this dude was like, "Yo, y'all got all these chicks here and everything, like y'all need to be dressing sexy," because we didn't do the whole like, you got to look like this, and we didn't do that. It was like, come as you are, rap as you are, be you, right? And they'd be like, "Oh, uh y'all need to like dress sexy." They wanted us to like wear a teddy or a thong or some dumb shit and then pass around $5 shots. I was like, this is why we don't let men create a women hip hop night. All right, no offense. That was a shot, but it was true, you know? And I was just like, y'all are interesting. I was like, yeah, no, that's not gonna be the focus of this night. Um, and then I mean, there were all these names, like different people were like giving up all these names and they wanted to be like, obviously everyone was like, y'all should call ladies first. And I was just like, that's so used and cliche. And there's like I feel bad because there's like a film now that came out and they used that, but it's whatever. I was just like, nah, it was another one. It was different things that people were coming up with. But what we decided, or yeah, when we were talking, was like, we wanted to have a name that spoke to like the essence of you know what we wanted to do, right? And we arrived, I remember um trying so many names, and some of the names were, I don't know, we went through a series of names. It was so many names, but the name that really kept sticking out to me was the foundation, you know, because I just kept thinking about, well, we're 5E Gallery, and I was kind of playing off of like the elements of hip hop. And if we're, the knowledge element is like, knowledge is the foundation, right? And at the same time, it was like really perfect because we were thinking about what are all these meanings and connotations. And so that's why we arrived. So we called it the foundation. So it was the foundation on Tuesdays. And people loved the foundation. They would come. It worked in all our rhymes. It worked like physically the way we wrote it out. Everything was the foundation, the foundation, foundation. So that was the name we rolled with, the foundation. She does do a whole explanation here about why we called it the foundation. And it kind of goes like into what I just explained to you. And that's on page 25, 26, 27, and even 29. um and then yeah, then it talks about like the Tuesdays. I mean, we did like different flyers. Like I was getting into the flyer design, and it was really dope. And then we had our original flyer and logo was like a cityscape. And then at the bottom said the foundation, and it was lavender and black. Super dope. And it was like a B girl, a MC, a DJ, you know what I'm saying? And it was like made into it. That was our original thing. Yes, what's in the name section, that section. Um yeah, so I just kind of gave you like a kind of personal explanation from that. Um and then from there we talk more about, the hip hop sounds and sensibilities in a post bankruptcy Detroit. And so, like again, I really created this as a response to everything that was going on. I think a lot of people thought I knew what I was doing. Maybe I presented as such, I didn't mean to do that, but I'm just the type of person, like if I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it, even if I don't know what I'm doing. But I'm gonna, some do it to death. You know what I'm saying? But that's the way I was just raised. Like just do it, just try it. That's what my mom used to always say. Rest in peace. My mom used to be like, just do it. Nobody knows what they're doing. Just try it. And that's what we did. We just tried stuff. I remember, like I said, the first time we did it, um we were what we tried in the evening, and we were like, and then the MCs and stuff, they want an audience, so nobody was really coming. So they was like, well, let's try it earlier, because other people were like, well, we got to get the after work crowds. It's like, so we tried the like 6 o'clock, and which meant that youth could come, which was cool. But then some of the MCs were like, yo, like this is too early, you know what I'm saying? So then we tried a little later. I never liked later. Like these hip hop people, these night people, I don't know what's wrong with them. They like doing stuff like after 9. See, I'm ending my show at 9:30. Like they like going on to the break of dawn. You know what I'm saying? And my break of dawn was in the 90s, yo. You know what I'm saying? When I was in my 20s, I'm 51. I'm not doing no break of dawn. Um, you know what I'm saying? Around 9:30 is when I'm hitting the sheets. Go to sleep. And then what's that meme with DJ Pillow and MC Blanky? That's me at about 9:30. Um, but like I said, I'm gonna end it like right here. If you guys don't have the book, go into the description. I think there's a link to purchase the book. If you see the book on Amazon, it might be sold out, which is kind of cool. But if you see the link, um it says even I did breaks of dawn back then. I don't do no break of dawn. That's my break of dawn is like, if I'm up at the break of dawn, I'm outside trying to see a shooting star or an eclipse or some or so, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to see like something, in the clouds, or something that's going on with an asteroid or something. But yeah, so if you want to purchase the book, please go into the link in my description. So the book is through University of California Press. And just so y'all know, that Dr. Ferrugia and Dr. Hay created it so that all of the proceeds go directly to us, to my organization. That's how they designed it. Um, what else? It said I'm a premature old head. I was a premature old head. Growing up, I've always been an old head. Um, and yeah, but I thank y'all for like kicking it with me, sticking this out with me for this hour and a half that we've been here. If you don't have the book, like I said, you can get it um at the website. Also, too, something I'm thinking about is doing a audio book version. So yeah, I'm talking to them to see, like, let's do the audiobook version, because a lot of people read audiobooks, and although I do want people to buy the book, I want people to have access to the information. The other thing I will say, I really appreciate having this space to be able to share this book with y'all, because it means a lot to me, because it was my life's work. And even saying this, like, I'm getting a little in my throat because, like I told y'all, I invested and lost my life savings. Um, I shouldn't say lost. I would say it was stolen, right, from me through COINTELPRO-ish type stuff that I told y'all about. And that's why you're on episode 1 or 2. But I broke down all what happened to me in those episodes, with the space, with the police and the white community and my own community members and my business partner and all that stuff that was really painful, that I am honestly still healing from to this day. And so when this book came out, like, I was thinking, like, yeah, when the book comes out, but the book was finally released. So initially the book was not going to be a book. Initially the book was a paper, was research that they wanted to do as professors. And then it became a paper, and then it became a journal entry, and then it got, if I'm not sure, I think it got reviewed by Jeff Chang, or I don't know, but anyway, it ended up being a book. And then so now it's a book. And when it came out June 2020. And so we had this whole thing planned where we were going to do, a tour about the book. We're going to be in all these bookstores and all this stuff. And as you know, the world shut down, so we couldn't do none of that. So we did end up doing like a book, signing, if you will, virtually in June with the African American Museum. I'll try to find that recording, and I'll ask if that could be on here. Also, too, I was interviewed by Harry Allen with um is it called the Center for Black Culture? But it was with the Schomburg. So I mean, I've had some great stuff, but it was like, I shouldn't even say but. I'll say it's in pandemic and it's 2020, so it wasn't really like seen. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's fine, because for me, I'll be honest with you, I've always loved Harry Allen, not loved, but admired. You know what I'm saying? And so he knew who I was because he does photography, so he knew me. He knew my photography work. So when I met him, I actually met him at Show and Prove. So I saw him at Show and Prove. Show and Prove was this hip hop conference that I hope she brings back. But I had gone to Show and Prove, and I saw Harry Allen was speaking about his photography. He did this exhibit that was some of his images that he had never shown before, of like Public Enemy and studio and hanging out and all this stuff. And so when I came in, he was like, oh, and he was like a fan of my photography, and I was about to pass out because I was like, oh my god, I'm such a fan of Harry Allen. But when he said that, I was like, wow. And then like that might have been 2019 or 2018, 19. My years, I forget. Time is flattened because of pandemic. But fast forward to 2020, and I got a call from, trying to think. I think it was the Center for Black Culture. But anyway, um, and they were like, "Oh, we want you to Harry Allen's going to interview you." I was like, "What?" Because this was something I wrote in my journal, like, I like 20, I don't know, like 2009, 2010, maybe even 2011. I wrote in my journal that I would love to be interviewed by Harry Allen, and then it happened, and I was like, like a decade later, I'm like, this is great. But any hootie rooty tootie, I was just sharing that to say that a lot of great things have come from this work. It is a part of my life's work. I experienced a lot of tragedy, and a lot of trauma and turmoil in doing this work. But I've also experienced extreme joy and got to do a lot of things. You know what I'm saying? That I wanted to do, and that I, meet people, and it's put me in certain places. So I don't know. It's like life be life in. As the youth, that's what the youth say. Youth, YUF. Why you the youth. So what do you say? Yeah, I would love to do something like that, but I practice nonviolence. Unfortunately. Uh Once they started talking with you, they were like, this is definitely a book. They Maybe so. They were saying it was a book maybe because of all the things that they saw and experienced. I'd love to bring them on here. Um Tangentially, before I get off, there's a whole thing that I do want to say, because I also created Dilla Youth Day. And through my work and doing that, I, on my other podcast, Piper Carter podcast on Detroit is Different Network, I, a couple years ago, had the honor of being, well, I've done a couple of interviews with Ma Dukes, Jay Dilla's mother. I do want to bring her on here for this platform, and yeah, I'm gonna ask her. I did reach out to her. I just got to follow up about her dates, but I want to bring her on here to have some more conversations with her, my Dukes. Yeah, so all that work and that relationship and all that came out of that experience. And so, that's going to be a good thing. And then there's a book called Dilla Time, and so on my other platform, I and so the author also wrote, oh my god, what is the name of the business of, is it the business of music or the music business? Anyway, I read that book so long ago, I'm trying to remember. It's the white cover with the green letters and the black. Dan Charnas is the author, but I'm trying to think of the name of the book. But yeah, I had read his first book about the music business, and it's like about this thick, and it's really good actually. And I think he did a great job on Dilla Time. And on my other platform, I got to have a conversation with him about the Dilla Time book, which on my other platform, that's like my most watched video of all time. And so I'm very excited about that. But I told him, and I told Dr. Farugi and Kelly Hay the same thing. I think a conversation that I want to have, and I don't know if we'll have it here or on my other platform, but a conversation that I want to have is about white allies and what that looks like in hip hop. Because there are white allies, you know what I'm saying? Regardless, not to like elevate whiteness or anything like that. But when we talk about the exploitation of white folks, there are also white folks who get it right. And I don't know. I feel like, and I tell them all the time, y'all need to either do some seminars or write a book for white folks. Y'all could call it Get Your People or whatever. And y'all need to speak to white communities about how to go into black communities respectfully, how to listen to black communities and black people and take direction from black communities and black people, and how to do these projects that y'all want to do respectfully. The reason I'm bringing them up is because I think that Dan Charnas and Dr. Kelly Hay and Dr. Rebecca Farugia got it right. And I think when people get it right, they need to be the ones to teach the other people how to get it better, if that makes sense. There's some other things that have happened since, like I know that they told me that they've gotten fronted off. But I think Khaled, y'all know Khaled fronted them off um seminars, right? Call get your people. You know what I'm saying? They need to teach, they gotta teach their own people, right? And I think when doing anti-racist work and white people are getting with other white people, I think that they shouldn't like lead that work. I think that they should be the face of that work, but I think that their guidance should come from us. And I think that those people, um I think that those people who have made a decision to do things in a right way need to help other people understand how to follow those processes and decolonize themselves and learn how to do. Anyway, I'm saying that to say that I think Colin had fronted them off and they told me about it. And I did call Khaled and I was like, yo, you don't have the narrative right. And I think that that's what happens sometimes too, is with black women, people make assumptions that that people make assumptions. And I think one of the assumptions with this was that these white people came and did some colonization when that wasn't even what happened at all. Like, we led this process. They asked our permission. We didn't even, or like I'll say, I didn't even let them get close to us for even a year. So they came around for a whole year just listening and learning and humbling themselves and asking questions like, how to do it better, and offering things, right? Like, um not just trying to exploit, or not exploiting at all, right? Like, really, just being humble and listening and paying attention and being present and adapting, when when need be. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, that's a different conversation. Uh I really want to possibly, I don't know. I have to see if that's something that we want to do on here or not. I think it would be a good conversation to have on here, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, and maybe we can even have questions from the audience and stuff like that. Cause yeah, like, I think that's how we help our white allies go and be better allies as well, is to give input and feedback. But anyway, that's a whole separate thing. And so, like I said, I really appreciate the opportunity for y'all to experience this work. It means a lot to me. It has shaped and transformed me into the person I am today. Um, and I appreciate having a space where I can share, you know, um, my truth. How about that? My truth. It's the truth, but let's just say my truth. But so I just want to, give gratitude and, to the platform and to everyone that's tuned in. So I want to appreciate the chat for tuning in. Um and if y'all get the book, great. We'll see what we can do about getting the audio book. I appreciate Dr. Ball's gonna bring me on there. That's gonna help me. I really, really value Dr. Ball. I know he keeps telling me stop calling him Dr. Ball. I really value Jared. Um, I value his opinion. I value, the way in which he thinks about things and his analytical, mind, and the way in which he speaks his mind and his bravery, his courage to like be honest with a person, when he thinks differently. And, I look forward to being interviewed, and I hope he's not easy on me when he interviews me. And I told him, go ahead and ask me some hard questions because I can take it. So, what else? I think that's it. So, like, share, subscribe, tell your friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to like, share, and subscribe. You're following us on the Patreon, right? That's where you're going to donate your money to the Patreon for Black Power Media. You're going to follow all the socials of Black Power Media. If you want to check me out, I'm Piper Carter. All my socials are Piper Carter. If you want to follow my organization, is We Found Hip Hop. So all the socials are We Found Hip Hop. And if you don't remember anything I just said, go to the description, and everything I just said is in the description. I wasn't there for Mama's Biscuits, so I can only go off of Jared's enthusiasm. And based off his enthusiasm, it seemed like something I wish I was there. How's that? All right, y'all. So, oh, I'm glad you liked the book. Yeah, thank you, thank you. So we'll continue. I have reached out to a list of MCs and B girls and some DJs. I do hope that they show up. Trying to work on getting people's schedules. Where do you buy the book? Um, you buy the book, go into the description of this video, and there's a link to purchase the book. You can get it from University of California Press. It was available on Amazon, but I'm being told that it's sold out, which I kind of find cool. But I need to talk to the publisher to ask them to put some more on Amazon. But yeah, going to University of California Press. If you can't remember that, go to wefoundhiphop.com/book, and that will take you to my website, but that will take you to the link to purchase the book. And so, yeah, until next week. One last thing. For those of you that are in Detroit or the Midwest area or the Detroit area, Detroit is different, is doing a Detroit is Different festival the last weekend of October. And so on October the 28th at 4 p.m., I'm doing an event. It's called I'm the Rapper, She's the DJ. And I'm going to have, I think, 7 MCs, or is it 6 MCs? I'm going to have 6 MCs and a DJ. And it's going to be 6 women MCs and a DJ. We're doing a cypher. It's called She's the Rapper, I'm the DJ. I think we're going to do it on live stream. But if you are in Detroit, we're going to be at the Andy and the Andy Arts Center, which is 3000 Finkel. So I hope y'all can make it out 4 p.m. Come on to my social medias and let me know if you want to come. And yeah, so I hope that we see y'all there. All woman cypher, woman DJ. I'm the Rapper, She's the DJ. It's the name of the event with Detroit is Different, October 28th, 4 p.m. at the Andy Arts. Oh, that'd be cool if BPM could live the show. Let me talk to people and see what could happen. We could do a simulcast. That'd be cool. Yeah. All right. We check that out. All right. So Amani Festo, Breaking Ground, yeah, and Sugar Booger, and let me see who else was in here. Yama, Yipper, CB. Who else was in here in the chat? Chatting up some chat. Oh, Jared was in here for a minute. Oh, who is this? Mara was here. Just shouting everybody out. I gotta go back. Marley. Who else was in here? So many people was in here. Ely. Who else? Look at that. Jamon. Who else? Ambassador General. Um, James was in here. David. Did I get everybody? Trying to make sure I don't leave nobody out. All right, and cart packs. All right. All right. Peace, y'all. Have a great week, and I'll see y'all next Monday here for Beyond Breaking Barriers, 8 p.m. Central on Black Power Media. Peace.